welcome to the Talking Timelines podcast. We are four women with 4 points of view and four accents with one common goal: to share insights and information about what's going on in the world from a higher consciousness perspective. No BS, no PC, just lots of ideas that you won't hear on mainstream media. We chat, we laugh, and most of all, we shed and share light. Join us each week as we talk timelines.
Hi everyone, welcome to Talking Timelines 24. I think we're on today already. It's gone very quickly. So today we've got a subject that's been brought to our attention that we're going to have a chat about, because some of it we understand, some of it we don't fully understand, and we're putting three heads together. Susan can't be with us. She's got stuff going on. And basically, there is a scientist out there, I think his name's Jeffrey Griffiths, talking about the human condition. And he's getting a lot of publicity on a lot of podcasts, and he's written books. I've just started reading the book Freedom that he wrote. And basically, he's explaining to the world about the human condition and what that is. So we've all had a little look at it, but we haven't really fully digested it and had a chance to talk about it yet. And that's what today's show is about. So none of this is carved in stone. We're just throwing it out there, trying to understand it and see what we can do with it. I think I've got a good grasp on it now, and to me, it's about, there's a lot of healing to be done, and this is going to make a difference in that respect. But yeah, let's just, for a change, I'm going to go to Lisa, because normally I go to Laura straight away. And I'm going to go to Lisa and ask, what did you get from the video that you watched about the human condition?
Well, it was great information, and because you don't typically hear discussions or podcasts based on the content that was shared on there, and I feel like I have to watch it again because it's
Yeah.
one of those things where it's like, I took it as human condition, as if like we're just living in a world of full of programs, because as he had mentioned, Dr. Jeremy Griffiths, that this is not something that's innate that we're born with, and so obviously it's conditioning, and I think that's in the midst of all the programs that are around us and in the way the world controls us, right?
Mhm.
As soon as we start off in kindergarten, or even probably even before that it starts, and yeah, so that's what I got from it, and it's just made me more aware of in the other areas that were programmed,
Mhm.
kind of like in that's what I got.
Okay.
That's
And what about you, Laura?
Yeah, so my biggest takeaway from this was that people see humans as being these horrible, mean, doing like, we're not good. We're not good. We're not inherently good. And we're capable of violence and murder and all these awful things that go on. And basically, what he was saying is that's really not true, that humans actually are full of love and kindness and generosity, but because of the situation that we're living in, a lot of it programming and so forth, there's an anger, a frustration that we can't do something about it, so that it manifests we can't solve these problems. So it comes out in violence, it comes out in greed and all these other ways. And that's where the human condition is that because we're quote unquote just humans, we can't do anything about this. So we resort to these other measures. And I think that the biggest message that I got was that yes, we are inherently good, and we're not flawed, and it's not our fault that all these things are going on in the world, because you can look around and just say, my God, humans are they're awful. Look what they're doing to each other. And that's where the programs and societal stuff and all the other things kind of play out. And to kind of celebrate the fact that no, that's not inherently who we are, that we are really generous and kind and kind of all the other, positive attributes that human beings do have.
Hmm.
But yet it's kind of been corrupted, just like everything else that we've been exploring. So that was kind of my take. And he goes back, he talks about, how apes, the bonobos, and how other uh, species actually act. And It was just very interesting, I thought. But yeah, I agree with Lisa that it was a lot to take in one listening,
Mm-hmm.
and there was a lot to it, but that was kind of the gist of what I got from it.
Okay. Well, I did listen to the video, that podcast, and then I got the book, and I'm into the book. So what I've gleaned from it is he gives an analogy in the book of birds flying south for the winter. And to imagine that that's in instinct, it's about instinct, and that it's our instinct to fly south for the winter because it's going to get cold where we are and we need to be in a warmer climate for our own survival. But one of the birds that he calls Adam, slight reference to the Garden of Eden there,
Yeah.
decides to like look down and sees an island and he's like, oh, I wonder what it's like down there. And his instinct is going, no, 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 keep flying south. And eventually he gives in curiosity and he goes down to the island. And that's when man started to develop self-consciousness instead of acting as the flock in instinct, which I perceived as oneness. That, we were all in this oneness, we were all very pure, doing the same, pure, 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 pure all the time. And that the story of Adam and Eve is about the similar thing. It's about them being in this perfection all the time, but then there was an urge within. Maybe it was from the soul. I don't know for sure, but to me, it feels like there was an urge within to go further. If everything's just the same old perfect, perfect, perfect all the time, there's no growth in that.
Yeah.
There's no learning, there's no expansion, there's no creation within that. So to me, the maybe the soul, our essence has kind of led us to go and experiment, break away, go and experiment, and did that. But there's this inner conflict of the instinct going against, that message, and that created an inner conflict within. And eventually we get annoyed with our inner instincts, which may be our representative of our higher self to a degree. And we shut that down, tell it to shut up, get lost, I'm going to do it anyway. And off we go. And then, so that's when ego started to evolve. Consciousness started to be intellectual instead of instinctual. And I think there's another level to that anyway, because they talk about instinct. Basic instinct is base chakras. Base, it's animalistic survival instinct, as opposed to the divine feminine aspect of it. And I use the word divine loosely, guys, which is intuition, which is more heart-based and the mental spiritual mind in that higher level of consciousness. Intuition and instinct are different. People think they're the same, but they're not. The intuition is intuition is a higher frequency, basically. Instinct tends to be more survival in that
And
respect.
intuition, I think, can be developed, where instinct, you're kind of innate, you're born with it.
Yeah,
You said survival.
yeah, exactly. So that breaking away where people talk about the fall from grace and the fallen ones and all this other stuff, we went into a space where we became conscious and started becoming creators and creating all kinds of stuff. I mean, you only need to think about all the different stories in the universe and multiverse and different dimensions and, aliens and angels and gods and all this other stuff. It's all created from, zero. That we fell, we got greedy, we got materialistic, we became angry, became alienated from our inner instinct that was keeping us on that path. And that's where we became arrogant, aggressive, and the ego started to fluff up and get bigger and bigger and bigger, and power, greed, all of that stuff. And the human condition is linked, that is the human condition. But we realizing now that we had to fall into that to gain understanding of creation and everything else that we've done, that we are manifestors and we are co-creators. We're not just part of that flock, just floating along in perfect bliss all the time. It would be boring. It would. So there had to
And that's
be,
not, yeah, 100% it would be boring. And this is not why we're here. We didn't volunteer to be here or elect to be here on, on our own free will.
Yeah.
just for a cakewalk. We came for the challenges. We came for that growth. And so with the human condition, like think about it, what we landed in. We landed in a area that was totally an environment that was constructed and not in our best favor. And so we've had to navigate.
Yeah.
And that in itself is like almost like a boot camp.
Yeah. Well, then we're going into like other timelines that are going on in the world and other stories, because you've got the biblical, the spiritual, you've got the religious timeline, and they're taught about the Garden of Eden, and then it came from there, and the 7 days, and and God rested on a Sunday and all that stuff. And then you've got the spiritual community that are looking into other areas of where it began. You've got the Big Bang Theory on the scientific side of it. There's all these different timeline belief systems going on as we're moving forward. And the one timeline is about getting back into oneness, back into neutral, where we are caring for one another, and we're realizing that I don't like to use the word corrupted because that offends our ego, but we're like a beautiful piano that needs to be retuned and back to its former glory. Looking at it on that respect, that it's okay to love and accept our shadow side. This is all about the shadow at the end of the day, that we look around us in the world, and even though we may not be consciously aware, we're apparently only like fully conscious of 5% of what's going on in our consciousness. Within that 95%, in our deeper consciousness, we know that we are pure divine beings, for want of a better description. And we look at the world and we know that we're responsible for all the darkness and the shadow out there because it's a projection of our collective consciousness. And there's a shame and a guilt that is within us. That's also part of the human condition in the context of understanding and the responsibility that we are responsible for the mess in our world. We create it, every one of us. And whether we know that or not, that's what's coming out now. There's this understanding coming on many different levels. This guy's he's a scientist, a biologist, I believe. And
Mhm.
One of my all-time go-tos for people that are new to any of this is Bruce Lipton, Dr. Bruce Lipton, cell biologist at MIT, that walked out of that college and started telling people the truth about what's going on, that the biology of belief, only 1% of disease is actually inherited. The disease itself. Consciousness is at the core of everything. Bruce is out there at the moment talking about they can cut a tumor out of you, but the consciousness that created that tumor is still in your body and it's going to grow it back. Okay.
Yeah.
The system is set up that if you're cancer free for 5 years after having that tumor taken out, you're healed. But the thing is, it takes about 7 to 10 years for it to grow back from the consciousness that's left in your body. That's the area that I work with people. If you've got to get the consciousness out that fed the core of that tumor. So basically, instead, I mean, this guy's getting a lot of publicity at the moment. People are saying amazing things about him, that he's going to end suffering on the planet. This is, the end to suffering and healing the world and all this stuff. And this is why I'm reading the book, because I'm like, well, what's his solution to this?
Yeah, what is the solution?
Yeah, well, what they're so far, and I haven't finished the book yet, it's saying that it's about when there's recognition of the truth behind this, that we did need to fall in order to grow, then we can get off our own backs and stop judging ourselves and judging one another as being cruel and heartless and all the nasty things that we see out there in the world. That will start to heal it because we start to love and accept and forgive ourselves. Yes, Lisa.
Yeah, so I just got back from vacation, and when I was away on vacation for a month, right across the world there, and then I get news of what's happening in North America. And at the time, like when we first boarded this cruise ship for the Mediterranean, and the news that came through under the door was about the Charlie Kirk assassination. That was like on the literally the first day when all the news was coming out after the day of it happening. And it's just that I think it was less than 2 weeks later, they had an event where there was like almost 100,000 people that showed up in a stadium to honor him. And his wife had said on stage that she forgives the killer, right? I forgive him. Okay, no matter what anybody thinks, like some people think that there's a lot more going on with this whole story. Perhaps there is. And if we're really watching, yes, there is. But on another note, if she can forgive him, imagine everybody there and everybody that is aware of what's going on in our world with, the shift, right? And maybe people that are awake politically aren't necessarily awake spiritually. And I know that for a fact there's probably a huge percentage that aren't awake spiritually or aware. But imagine that all of us would say, I forgive the deep state, those corruptors, those that have, imprisoned us with their systems. Imagine if we all said that would make that would shift everything instantly.
Yeah. But what we get into is, and I taught this in a workshop recently, the shadow workshop, is to love and respect and accept and respect the shadow, and it dissolves it.
Yeah.
It's one of the most important things that, we can learn to do. And we're taught, even down the religious timeline, we're taught to love thy neighbor as thyself and to, be compassionate and to forgive. And there's some really great stuff in there. There is. The problem with it on a bigger picture is that it keeps you stuck in duality, believing God is something outside of yourself, when really the collective is what people would refer to as God. I prefer to call it one, because that is all encompassing of all religions and, includes the animals as well, and whatever other beings there are that we've created and others have created, and they do exist. You only need to go on Tubi and look up disclosure, and you've got the military talking about extraterrestrials and that. It's all there. People just don't watch it, or they think it's just, la la land, whatever. But the information is all there. So what's going on with what this guy is doing is basically, in the book, it talks about, can you imagine that if somebody's been saying to you, God, you're barbaric, you're evil, you're dark, you're this, and in your core, I'm not, I'm lovely, I'm kind, I'm compassionate, and I'm just pure love, that 2 million years of that, and you're going to get a bit fed up of it, and you start to get angry and alienated because you're being labeled something that in your core that you're not. And that's the human condition, that shame and guilt that we've carried and generations of us have carried. We've all seen it. Our ancestors have watched barbaric things. I mean, we're meant to be living in a civilized time, but you go back a few hundred years and it was barbaric. So all of this stuff is part of the human condition. So I think what they're getting at is that when people realize that this had to happen in order for us to come back into this 26,000 year cycle event that we're in now, where all of that old trauma, karma, everything else linked to it, cause and effect, what's stored in our energy field, what's stored in our genes, in our nervous system, what's stored in the energetic grid of the planet, and even the animals and the ocean and the earth itself, because the ocean's a liquid crystal. Mother Earth is a crystal. She's a central core healing crystal for the whole of our universe, and that's why this planet is so important in the first place. That all of that, we're going through a time now to love and accept the shadow within every single being, and we can release all of that negativity and all of that shame and guilt and trauma and the memories of that from our systems. And the importance not just coming out of yourselves, it's got to come out of the nervous system. And this is why there's so much anxiety in the world at the moment, mental health problems as well, because of these things are coming up in our system to be released, and people are being given pills to deal with it instead of releasing it. And I've talked before, guys, about sun gazing. If you've got anxiety in your body, go and sit in the sun after sunrise. Go and sit before sunset. You've got an hour leeway, and just, visualize the sun coming into your body and asking for it to neutralize the anxiety, the depression, whatever you've got, anger, resentment. You can heal yourself for free by sitting in the sun. You're not in the middle of the day all afternoon and burning yourself. But 20, 30 minutes in the sun is brilliant. I time myself 40 minutes in the sun when it's at its peak, because that makes me a little bit red, and then the next day I've got a tan. But I know my body and I know my limits on how much of it I can take. So this is what the human condition is. So I understand that understanding is coming en masse because this guy's getting a lot of publicity. I'm into the book. I'm enjoying reading the book. Um, but it's going to probably take me a while because I've got a lot of other things going on at the moment. But I've been really focused on what's the gist of this? You know, what can we bring to people that they can recognize in themselves and love and accept themselves, love and accept our ancestors, love and accept the unconditionally love and accept the collective shadow. That's what I'm getting at.
So Janine, I guess I'm still a little confused, and maybe others are as well, as to, are you saying that, or is he saying that this began when we realized we are separate and we've made a choice that goes against our instinct?
Yes.
And so that we kind of like we left the flock. We kind of,
Yes.
and so that's how it began.
Yes. But it
So
needed to happen in order for us to develop knowledge and understanding because it would have just been same old, same old, same old, same old, same old, same. It wasn't growing. Now, in the spiritual community, when we hear about the stories on that timeline of the fall from Atlantis, of Atlantis and things like that, it's a similar thing that people broke away, the pollution got in, Atlantis was destroyed for the reason. But my understanding of all that is because nobody was growing. We were coming in to this planet, which is a matrix, a construct that was created as to experience having a physical life and experience, that we weren't evolving very quickly and it became, very kind of boring and slow. And so there was a spark of information to break away from this. Go and create. See what you can create. Learn knowledge, learn and understand it. And what we're doing now is we're coming back to the core of that again in order to raise everyone else up so we can still live in this beautiful world and experience. I don't think we're going to get rid of duality fully, but I do think there's going to be enough people in neutral that are going to carry the rest. It's a bit like when birds fly south. I love documentaries, as you all know, especially the animal ones with um, that old guy, I can't remember, David Attenborough. Sorry for calling you old, David, but he is 90 odd. About when birds fly south, the leader of they usually fly in V, in a V. If you look at the geese, for example, the leader, the strongest one, is at the front, and there's a backdraft of the air speed through the team. And when they get tired, they go to the back, and that backdraft lifts them up a bit. So they get help. And that's the way it works. The strongest at the front leading the way, then they get tired and they drop to the back and have a little rest. And the whole team, the energy of that flock and the airflow carry the weaker ones at the back. Well, this is the same thing that's happening with us. And it's the same thing with what happens in the animal kingdom and with the plants and stuff. They let one another know when there's stuff going on. It's innate to take care. Like, look at the elephants and the matriarch in the elephant world and the lioness in the lion world, and the way they are. It's all about taking care, of the weakest by the strongest providing and stuff like that. So that's what's going on. Basically, what we're doing, the people that have been called, and it's not necessarily the Jewish people have got a little bit confused there with being the chosen ones. It doesn't mean that you're better than anyone else. No one's better than anyone else. That's ego. What it means is that you were chosen because you've got more knowledge and to share that knowledge with the world and help them evolve into this next layer of consciousness. So the people that are practicing the meditating and doing the neutral every day, they're lifting the rest of the flock up with them because they're projecting this higher reality. And then we're kicking into things like the Maharishi effect, which is, when there's a percentage of the square root of 1% of the population of a community that is meditating, for example, is having an effect on the whole community. And, Earth is a community at the end of the day. So that's what I see is going on here, that this human condition is being brought to people's awareness so basically they can forgive themselves and their ancestors and love and accept the shadow within all, that it's all happened for a reason. You know, even if you go to the religious connotation about Adam and Eve in the garden and Eve took the apple off the tree of knowledge, I can't get my head around why anyone would believe God made this beautiful garden, put a couple of people in it, goes, there you go, there's a beautiful tree there full of apples, but you're not allowed to eat them. That didn't make sense to me straight away. But if you can get past that, she took the apple, so she's seen as the bad person, listened to the serpent, the devil, the snake come and got in her ear. But maybe it was a higher self that got in her ear. You know, maybe it was the higher consciousness that said, you know what, it's time for change. Take some knowledge from the tree, go away, create, learn, evolve, grow, and teach other people. And then it got manipulated at some point. And the greed and the power crazy kicked in, and we really fell. When instead we could have gone into a beautiful place where we had all of these abilities to create the most amazing things on this planet just with our hearts and minds. And I think that's what we're coming back to now. I think the future of our world isn't this one world government that people are, you know, predicting on that negative timeline. I think this is about a council of evolved people being brought together who will oversee group meditations for the highest good of all, group healing for the highest good of all. And that's the world that I'm a part of. I know that for sure. Everyone's got a choice. If you want to go down the cyborg one and be implanted and Robocop, look forward to your tattoo ID and your credit score system, because that's already being highly promoted on social media at the moment. That timeline is being put out for predictive programming for the people that watch it, get frightened and tap that into their consciousness. It's a program being downloaded into you guys. So be careful what you're listening to. Remember what I say, not in my reality. I intend to observe and not absorb on any level of consciousness, because it's not just watching it, it's listening to it on podcasts and stuff like that as well. Be very careful. Only allow in what you want in. Anything else, I do not consent. Do not consent in the name of the absolute.
It's interesting. I heard somebody talk on a just a very short blip on a podcast about she was like this psych. I mean, she was kind of looking into the probability of the digital ID happening in the UK, and what she got, which is actually was very interesting. She said, we're already living in it, right?
Yeah.
So those people, right? She says they already have everything is digitized. You're already doing it. Your phones are listening, like it's all in it. So she's like, she was seeing this as more as a test to see how the group collective would respond to this.
Mm-hmm.
She says, because it's already happened, it's already there. And then those that want to seek it further, whether getting chips or whatever, or what are those, the virtual, the glasses,
Yeah.
going to make that choice. But it's the awareness that it's already there. And like what you said, Janine, if you're not careful whether what you're taking in or what you're participating in, you're already in it.
Yeah.
So I thought that was very interesting. So I had heard something, and I was really curious how this plays into it, that humanity was actually an experiment in free will,
Yes. Similar thing.
which would explain this.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like, let's see what they do with it.
Yeah. It's amazing that, you know, the spiritual community have been talking about this for decades, but a scientist comes along and everyone's
Exactly.
listening. He's on the podcast everywhere. This man's going to save the world because he's figured this out. You know, it's not going to be a man that saves the world. I'm sorry, guys. That's not the way this works. What's going to save this world is the feminine coming in, because the feminine is the creation. When you join that with the masculine, it's even more powerful. This is about stepping back into our creative power through the divine feminine. And I use the word divine loosely, but a lot of people understand that language, that we're going back into the core. When you're in the core, you're in the womb. That's where you are. That's where all of creation comes from, because it ticker tapes out of no thing manifested, no thing manifested, but it's so fast that we see it and perceive it with our sensory perception, our five senses, taste, touch, sight, hearing, smell, and so on. And we got our sixth sense, our intuition or instinct, as some people would call theirs. It's coming from a lower level. Remember, instinct is base And there's a lot of corporation out there, people working from instinct, survival. It's a different frequency to intuition. We need to be getting into intuition, which is the layer above the mental layer in the body. It's the purple color, the violet color, the spiritual color. That's the color you want to be bringing in. The light blue takes a lot of work to get into that light blue. That's the divine mother energy. Source is, white. The void is like a bubble. It's got all the colors of the rainbow in it. So the colors make a difference in that respect. So it's bringing in that feminine energy again, drawing that feminine energy up, that feminine prana energy from Mother Earth into the womb, into the heart. That gives us that access to huge collective manifestation skills. And what's happening at the moment with all these eclipses and planetary alignments, because the planets are part of our energy field, they're all a part of us because we're all one. They have got memories, they're memory like storage crystals in the universe, if you like, in the holographic universe, that have got memories of the past. And when these planetary alignments happen, the planets come into alignments and they drop down those memories into our energy field, expand us so that we can heal that and move into the next level. And what happens then, our energy field gets activated and lit up to the next layer. And then more downloads, we do the healing, we get lit up next layer. So we're becoming big, expanded, big as the world, big as the universe, big as the multiverse. Some of my students in my workshop this weekend, we're clearing their multiverse. That's how powerful they are. And that goes on and on. My experience, my growth has seen 7 universes and 7 multiverses, and then you get to creation. So, there's work to be done. Yeah, information is great, and the logical mind and the intelligent mind out there takes that information on and go, oh, okay, so we did fall, we were horrible, and it's okay because we needed to be in order to learn about creation, about love, about hate, about fear, about how we manifest things, all of it, how we create wars, and so on and so forth. But what I haven't got into far enough in this book yet, which is where my mind goes, how far into that did it get really polluted? When, there's timelines out there that are talking about reptilian draconian programs in the construct and things like that. They've come in and they've put an overlay into this construct that's kept people trapped in this reincarnation cycle instead of an evolutionary cycle. There is a difference in it. So there's a lot more to it than just figuring that out. There's still healing to be done. There's still the trauma of our ancestral lineage. There's still war in the planet Earth to be healed out of the grid. And this is what we're being shown in the world at the moment. But it's being used and manipulated to hold people back with fear instead of this is what's going on. This is the collective consciousness trying to spit war out of the planet. Israel is the microcosm to the macrocosm of the whole field, by the way. That's why it's always been kept in conflict, because if you keep the nucleus in conflict, that spreads through the whole planet and keeps the chaos going. So there is an agenda here. We're all aware of that agenda. But this isn't about blaming them. They're a projection of our own greed, our own shadow aspects, and so on and so forth. So our power doesn't come from sending them love and light. That's a psychic attack, guys. I've talked about that before, which is when I come into this 23 years ago, I was getting, just send love and light to everyone. And oh God, I started getting attacked big time when I was doing that because the dark were attacking me back. And then I realized, why am I doing this? It's like them sending me fear. What right have I got to send these people on their journey, no matter who they are, to force my light onto them? So that's where the teachings fell wrong in the spiritual community and why I backed out of it for that reason, because this is not being taught correctly. So when we understand that everything we perceive is a projection, most of it is the collective. Some of it is ours. If it doesn't affect you, then it's not in your system. You've already switched it off. But I had this discussion with someone very close to me recently who asked me about why don't you get angry about this war and they're killing babies and so on and so forth. And I said, because I see what's going on. I see what's going on. I don't feel anger towards it. I see a cleansing happening. And the sooner the people realize that what's being thrown out here is the war and the depravity that we've got in our own DNA or in our own consciousness from our past, from the human condition. This is what's being spat out of Mother Earth's chakra system, energy system, field, her grid. The more we heal it within ourselves and release it, and you can do it by sitting in the sun. I really hope people share this podcast because people need to know this. You can do it by sitting in the sun. You can end war. If you all sat in the sun, if 10,000 of you sat in the sun tomorrow morning and got war out of your consciousness, ask the sun, which is the source coming through into your body and into your energy field, to delete war, we would delete war. It's as easy as that. The agenda and the people that have had control have just under 10,000 people in their little team. That team effort has kept control. That team effort is collapsing rapidly, rapidly. And we are the force because we are the majority. But we don't need all 8 billion people on the case. We just need a few people that are really prepared to do a lot of work, raise themselves up, lead by example. And you can do that by just sitting in the sun every day, healing yourself every day. Everything you see in the world, if it triggers you, if there's an energy surge in your body, whether it's fear, whether it's anger, whether it's judgment, all of these things are part of the human condition. But the big one at the moment, and this is what people are being taught, is you've got to learn to get war out of your consciousness. If you want to end war on this planet, there's no politics going to do that. None of those people are going to end war. It's not what they're programmed to do. They're programmed to show us our own shadows. That's their place in this. We're all making this movie together. So we need to start judging them. It's the same with the trafficking timeline. All of that as well. That's religion that's caused the duality of good and evil. There wasn't evil before. There wasn't Satan. There wasn't Lucifer. There wasn't Prince of Darkness. And in the Jewish community, you know about the 3 giants probably. They're the 3 levels. So I've studied all that as well. So that wasn't there before. All of it's been created by us. So if it's all been created by us, we just need to shut those programs down, get into the middle, get healing ourselves with what, if you can afford, to spend a lot of money and do it faster, by all means, go and check out my website, go and see Laura, do what you need to do. But if you can't, sit in the sun, sunrise, sunset, every day. Heal yourself up, write down every day, put it in your phone. If you see greed and it makes you angry, if you see materialism, it makes you angry. If you see someone with a nice car and it makes you jealous, heal that. Because what you're doing is you're raising your frequency up and you're turning into a powerhouse of love and compassion. And you are the programmer, you are writing, you are the architect of the reality. And more of us need to come together and do this now and realize this and stop watching this garbage and mind control that's out there at the moment, trying to keep people, pick a side, because it's duality. It's a trap. It's all a trap. All of it.
Greg Graydon did a really wonderful interview recently with Joe Rogan, and he said something. It's very, very simple, but I thought it's really great that he made this distinction, the difference between dark and evil.
Uh-huh.
And because people say, oh, it's dark stuff, it's bad and whatever. Dark is just the opposite of light. That's all it is. It's like the shadow where evil has intent.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a big difference because
Yeah.
people have a hard time with darkness. And it's just, you have to have dark in order to have the light. The difference is when there's the intent, that's where the evil comes in. And that's what we've been seeing a lot play out on the planet. It's been that way for many, many, many years. And that's where it's kind of all coming in. And they're questioning all the things that are going on, that are happening. These are all the things that have been going on that we weren't able to see. It's almost like the light is now shining on the darkness to actually see where a lot of this evilness came from.
Yeah, well, maybe we should start calling it dark, because if you go into the void, which is the womb of creation, it's dark and it's so lovely. It's like black velvet. It's absolutely gorgeous, that bliss energy. It's difficult, really, because I understand people's anger, and I was there in the beginning. We got to fight these all the way, or fight them on the beaches. That, like, Winston Churchill came into me, and then I started realizing fighting's not the answer. You got to,
Mm.
what is the root cause of this? And the root cause of this is our own consciousness, every single one of us. And it's all the stuff from the past. It's all this that's created this human condition. And this human condition has turned us into these egoic, cognitively dissonant people that don't want to look at their own faults. So they cover it up, they numb themselves with alcohol or drugs or sex or porn or whatever it is, because they don't want to deal with their loneliness. They don't want to deal with the fact that they feel alienated. All of these problems in relationships, people go from one relationship to another looking for someone who's going to be better than the last, when really the person you're with is the perfect person for you, because they're showing you what you need to heal. And you don't like them, and
Yeah,
leave them for somebody else who's going to show you the same thing.
yeah.
So I'm quite excited about all of this, because the more I read, the more I'm like, okay, I've been saying this similar thing for a long time. It takes a scientist to open that door. Great. It's all good.
Yeah.
But there is work to be done now. When people wake up to it, there is work to be done. Healing needs to be done. And pretty much, if you're watching mainstream media, you can look at it where whatever they're saying, go to the opposite scale, and that's where you'll find the truth. Because the corrupt on this planet that are here, who have lost their connection to source, they've lost their connection to that love, and they need fear to survive. So if you think of them as desperate creatures that need, they're desperately trying to hold on and control and manipulate to get that loose, that fear energy that people talk about, because they're trying to survive, then it takes away a little bit of the nasty thoughts towards them. They're in survival mode. They have potential for growth as well. They do, no matter how dark they are. I don't think we should give up on anyone. I think everyone's got potential. No matter how evil you think they are, there is a spark in there of something pure, because we're all part of one. There can't be anything that, hasn't got that in it, because that's what existence is. That's what creation is. But what we need to do now is really take a sit back and thinking, right, what are we seeing in the world? What part of my consciousness is creating this? And heal that within, neutralize that within, bring that into neutral within you, bringing that bliss into that area and that neutrality. And moving away from, if people are teaching you love and light, guys, you're being taught to go down one half of a duality. It's a trap. And the spiritual community, I figured it out 23 years ago. I was only in it a year when I went to the masters that taught me and said, there's something wrong here. And the response I got was, who do you think you are? From their egos. You've only been doing this for a year. I now realize that I've been around for millennia. So I'm actually a little bit smarter than they gave me credit for. And I stood up to them. There was a little part of me was a little bit embarrassed, but then my inner strength said, Janine, you're right, stand your ground. 8 years later, one of those masters came back to me and apologized and said, I was right. 8 years later. That's when I was talking about certain, and I'm not going to say what it was because they have to find out for themselves, but certain energy healing practices had been infiltrated by the
You already
dark.
said in a previous podcast.
Yeah, they needed to know about it. People needed to know about it. So this agenda has been out to get the healers. It's been out to get the influencers. There's a lot going on. People really need to get into their trusting their inner guidance and that connection from the heart, not your head, because your head can be interfered with.
And it's even more difficult than ever right now because there's so much distraction to keep you out. And I heard someone say this just this morning that one of the reasons why this generation, I guess the kids now, the teens and early 20s having so much anxiety is that they're not allowed to be present. So they're now not allowed, I'm doing air quotes, to feel actually what they're feeling because everything is taking them out of that. So they don't know how to process anything because they're never in the present,
Mhm.
between social media and all these things going on. And yeah, I think there's so much pulling to keep us external and not go in. So it's even more difficult, I think, than ever right now. It takes more discipline to get to that quiet place.
Yeah, it does. It does. And unfortunately, the internet it has brought us together. We've got opportunities to do things like this, and we've all received a lot from the internet in one way or another, whether it's business, whether it's shopping, whether it's information, knowledge, whatever we receive. But there is a shadow aspect to it. And the youth are being targeted.
Mm.
They are, because they're the future. You can get them under control. The people that are not looking after themselves, that are a little bit older, they're going to die off.
Yeah.
There's never been a more important time to get metal toxins and trauma out of your body. Never. Because it's an invisible thing that's happening, invisible to the human eye, but it's having an effect on our bodies. So it's a really important time to be taking care of ourselves as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
And forgiving ourselves, giving ourselves permission to love ourselves. So I think that's an important one that comes up. My life changed dramatically when I gave myself permission to be loved. And I'll be honest, I was frightened to be loved because a lot of the people that I've loved and love me have died. And I thought, well, if I don't let anyone love me, I'm not going to get hurt anymore because, I've had a lot of grief, as you all know. And that's why I put myself in this, I'm good, I'm a kind person, but I don't need love. I can survive by myself. And when I made that decision, my life changed. The love is pouring in now, in various ways.
It sure is.
Yeah,
Sure is, Janine.
it is, yeah. And I can see it's just getting better and better all the time. So if you're at home and you're listening to this and you're thinking, what is this woman on about? Even if you don't get what we're saying to you, maybe just go and sit in the park or sit in your garden, get your bare feet on the grass as long as it's not too cold. And just give yourself permission to be loved. Give yourself permission to forgive yourself for all of your mistakes. And maybe just forgive everyone else as well. Everything you see in the world, just send out forgiveness. Forgive everyone, forgive yourself, give yourself permission to love and be loved. And it all makes a massive difference. Huge difference. Simple, simple things. Okay, that's enough from me, I think, for today. Okay, anyone else got anything they'd like to share?
Well,
I think
I think that, Janine, that when you had said that we have work to do, and for those people that are familiar with Abraham and Esther Hicks and that world, which they are putting out, they've shared so much great knowledge and help to really have people walk into their awareness, is, she would say, we never get it done. We never get it, we never really fully arrive. And I think that if we just see ourselves as works in progress, and we navigate through whatever comes at us, and also with that said, realize that we are the uh producers of the movie that we create. And like your significant other who loves you very much, he had said, we are creating our own movie, aren't we?
Yeah,
That's 100%.
yeah, yeah. And respect being brought back in as well. This is a really important thing. I did a workshop on Sunday, and Lisa was in there, and I was saying that my partner calls me goddess, and I love it. It's not because it makes me feel important. I know how important I am. I don't need my ego boosting, but it makes me feel respected. And that's why I like it. It's nice. It's a
Yeah.
nice nickname.
Yeah.
And it makes me smile. So there's lots of things we can do. Laura, what's your last little
I was just
insight?
thinking how it's really interesting. The tagline I have in the bottom of my website says, I help souls navigate the human experience. Because that's really when I really thought about what healers do, what people in our industry, and it's really is just navigating this experience of being human because we know you don't ever get it done. I don't believe we ever fully heal in a lifetime. I think it takes numerous lifetimes, but it's kind of like how we navigate through it. And basically, what we've been talking about this whole time is how to navigate to the highest level our souls in this human experience. It just occurred to me while we were talking, and it's kind of
Yeah.
like just sums up this.
Exactly. That's exactly it. And some of us have incarnated at this time. We're old souls. There are new souls, and you can see them doing silly things, and they're just new souls. Let them get on with it. Don't judge them for it. Sometimes you've got to make mistakes to learn.
Yeah.
Some of us are old souls that have come back with that mission in mind, that we know how to get up to these high levels. We know how to raise everyone else up by just doing it ourselves. And doing that, because once you've healed to a certain degree, or what's in your energy field, and you move up to the next level, there you can start moving into the void. You can start living in the gap. So you're in the gap between the matrices, between the constructs. So you can go into it, but you're not of it. You're a part of it, but you're not of it. It's not in your field, but you can walk through it, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
Okay, guys, well, great show today. Really enjoyed that. Sorry if I waffled on a bit more than I usually do, but you know what I'm like when I'm passionate about something.
Oh, it was awesome. It's all good.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. Well, thanks for
Thank
joining
you,
me,
ladies.
ladies, and I will
Yeah,
see
that's
you
great.
all again soon. And thanks for joining us at home. Please do share this podcast, because I think it's probably one of the most important things we've done so far. People need to know this information. And if everyone shared it with one person or two people and they all watched it, you'd have 1 million people listening to this in a month. So please do share it at home. Let's get this information out to people. Okay, have a great day. Bye.
Thank you.
Disclaimer: the content in this podcast is intended for educational and informational purposes only. The views, opinions, and information shared do not necessarily represent those of the hosts, but is provided for additional perspectives. None of the hosts are medical professionals, so we do not dispense medical advice. Please consult your healthcare professional for any health-related issues. And thank you for listening to Talking Timelines.